I'm at the Royal Observatory in Greenwich waiting in anticipation for the eclipse, but the weather is not in our favour. It's very cloudy and overcast at the moment, in fact quite misty. But with any luck, with anticipation and excitement, maybe that cloud will just move away. I'm here with Tom Kurz from the Royal Observatory. He is an astronomer, so who better to ask what's going to happen today? Tom, what can we expect?
Well, at the moment, not very much, because we're currently under a bank of cloud. But we hope this cloud is going to break, and that will give us an opportunity to see this eclipse. So we're looking at this really quite unique opportunity to see what's called the new moon. This is a phase of the moon we're not normally familiar with, but this month the new moon is going to cross in front of the face of the sun. And at about 9:30 this morning, the moon will actually be covering so much of the sun that we expect to see a smiley crescent in the sky. That is if we're looking towards the sun in the right direction, in the east-southeast, and as long as we're looking safely as well.
Yeah, well, there's lots of astronomers already here setting up their telescopes, so they're obviously really hopeful. As a meteorologist, I'm really hopeful that this cloud might break up.
Today is, of course, the spring equinox. It's the first day of spring in astronomy. It's also the new moon, of course, but it's also what we call a supermoon. The moon is unusually close to the Earth today, so it's actually even slightly larger than the disk of the sun, so it really can completely cover up the sun today.
So as an astronomer, this is a really special day for you then?
It's a very rare event. To have all of these things coming together at the same time is incalculably rare. I mean, we tried to calculate it, but it was taking too long, so we gave up. It is a rare one. It is a lovely one. What I like about eclipses is that, for one thing, you do have the opportunity to see the new moon. We look at the moon all the time here at the observatory, but the new moon is a phase we never see because it happens in blue sky and it's too dark to be seen. But for another thing, watching the moon move across the face of the sun, it's just a reminder that the solar system is a dynamic clockwork system. It's not just a bunch of lights up there in the sky, it's all in motion, and we get to see that today.
So you really do sort of see the planets in all their majesty today in a way, don't you, the way that it all works. And I was hearing that if it wasn't for the fact that the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, and that the moon was 400 times nearer the Earth than the sun, this wouldn't happen, this alignment wouldn't be exact.
That's right, so nature has conspired not only to make it possible to have eclipses here, but it's actually inevitable. We don't get them every month because the moon's orbit is tilted, but as you say, the apparent size of the moon and the sun are almost the same, and while they can vary, that actually gives us a range of lovely eclipses that are possible to see. And ultimately, we live at an opportune time in history because in millions of years to come, these sort of total eclipses won't be possible anymore as the moon gradually recedes from the Earth and is no longer large enough to cover up the sun.
I wasn't aware of that. So when is the last eclipse ever that we're going to, obviously not that you and I are going to see, but what's the last eclipse that's ever going to be seen then on Earth?
Well, I really can't say, I'm afraid, but what I would say, I mean, we will always get eclipses, but the total eclipses like the ones we're seeing today will become ever more unlikely, and eventually they will stop. And I did a back-of-the-envelope calculation a long time ago, and I made it to be about 500 million years, so you've got a bit of time to enjoy them yet.
I won't worry about that one then. So Amy, why are you here this morning?
Well, I live locally, so I just thought come and see the eclipse from the prime location that is Greenwich Park. And I go to uni here, so I thought, why not?
So local, expert, you knew where to come and stand on the top of a hill.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the weather is not really on our side at the moment.
And I think there's the pollution as well. It's blown in. I don't know. I'm not a weather expert. You are.
So what are you hoping to see today?
Well, I'm not sure it's a case of seeing much, but it's going to go dark, isn't it? But hopefully it'll clear up a little bit.
And the next full one is 2090, which I'm guessing even you won't be around for.
Unfortunately not, but who knows where technology will lead us.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed. We're all waiting in anticipation. The crowds are beginning to build up now, and I think we're hoping that we might get to see something this morning. Thanks, Amy. As you can see, the media are here. The anticipation is building. There's now only 10 minutes before first contact. Still cloudy skies, but we're ever hopeful. So, Greg, first contact.
Yes, it's not looking very good, I'm afraid. You know you're in trouble when, if you look in the direction where the sun is and the sky is the same brightness as when you look in the other direction, then you know you're in trouble. Yes, we have actually got first contact, you're quite right. So the moon is slowly slipping between us and the sun. And of course at the moment it's a big moon because the moon's orbit is not round, which some people don't imagine happens. So the moon can be closer to us. So we've actually got a supermoon, as they call it, which means it's big in comparison to the sun. So it's going to really block the sun. But of course, here in London, 84% of the sun. That's not bad, is it?
I think that's pretty good, especially when you think the next total eclipse is not going to be until 2090, when, let's face it, we're not going to be here.
No, I will be dead,
Yes,
just for the record.
I think so too. But I think what's fascinating is the sunlight is there, obviously, if we were above this cloud.
Well, yeah,
Travelling.
Indeed, the sunlight is 150 million kilometres getting from the sun to the Earth, and the last few hundred metres just blocked by the clouds. Nature's natural sunglasses, I suppose.
Yeah, and nature, as we say, always has the last say, doesn't it?
It definitely does, absolutely. And of course, what you've also got to remember is by having a supermoon, and the moon in line with the sun, we're pulling up big tides. So here in London, I'm sure they've got the barriers across to control the tides, but you get that lovely bore down the Severn, the River
Yes,
Severn, and
yeah.
I believe they've been riding it recently, simply because of this supermoon.
So I can tell you're excited to be here today. And there's a lot of astronomers here and a lot of telescopes. And I was asking somebody earlier, saying, you've got a very big telescope, is that a benefit? And they were telling me, no, it's not. Can you explain how these telescopes, when we tell everybody not to look at the sun directly, and then we're letting people look through telescopes, how does that work?
Okay, all these telescopes here are going to look directly at the sun because they have means by which they can dim the natural light of the sun, keeping it under control, dropping that light level thousands of times, making it safe for us to look through the eyepiece of those telescopes. And none of these people here want to damage their telescopes. You've got to remember, the sun is a really, really hot thing, so pumping all that energy down the tube of a telescope can do a lot of harm to the telescope itself. In reality, you don't want too much power. You actually want to keep the sun relatively comfortable in the eyepiece. So you want a smaller telescope, generally speaking, will give you a better image because you'll see the overall holistic view of the sun, giving you a much better context in which to see the eclipse itself.
Now, I have found a man here today that's going to be going to space. And I mean the real space. Oliver, tell us how this is going to happen.
Well, in 2 years' time, I'm going to go up in a two-man spacecraft, so a pilot and me, up to 103 kilometres into the almost out of the atmosphere. So I'll be up there for about 15 minutes in complete weightlessness. The whole flight will last about 90 minutes and will include going 3 times the speed of sound and getting about 5 G-forces as we re-enter the atmosphere coming down. And just to put it in perspective, that height of 103 kilometres is 2.5 times where Felix Baumgartner jumped out from in the when he skydived from space. So,
oh my goodness! So that's a long way, 103
Yeah.
kilometres. How did you come to get this opportunity?
so there was a competition run by Lynx Deodorant back in 2013, and about 87,000 people in the UK entered. And I was one of the guys who managed to get a chance to go to astronaut training camp in Florida. And out there, 23 winners from 23 different countries won a space flight, and I managed to be the UK winner.
My goodness, so there must have been thousands, millions of people applying to go and have this opportunity.
Yeah, there was actually 2 million applicants worldwide, and 87,000 in the UK, and the whole year there was a number of events to whittle us down to the lucky few that got the best prizes, and I managed to win with the actual space flight.
My goodness. Now, what made you want to do it, though? Because most people would be absolutely terrified about leaving the ground, even to go up in a bungee jump, let alone in a rocket.
Of course, well, I've always wanted to go to space since I was a kid, but I've also always been into kind of extreme sports, like I've done the bungee jump, I've done the skydiving, I've always...
So it was, what's next? Let's go up into space in a rocket.
Exactly. It seems like the logical step, doesn't it?
It's 5 minutes to maximum obscuration. That's when the moon comes right in front of the sun. It's not a total eclipse. There should be a crescent of the sun showing. Like you normally see a crescent to the moon, but a crescent to the sun. But unfortunately for us, it is still really misty and hazy here in London. Brendan, maximum obscuration. I mean, there is maximum obscuration by the cloud.
Yes.
But this is the time where the moon is right in front of the sun.
It is. This is this special moment that we've all been waiting for. I've been watching the animations that have been computed for this event for so long in the build-up, but now it's actually happening, which is incredible. So we're still getting 15% of the sun's light coming through, but it's been noticeably dimmer and noticeably cooler as well.
It definitely has. Even despite this cloud cover, it has got darker.
Absolutely.
How long will that darkness sort of last?
Just for a few minutes, but we are still experiencing the eclipse right up until 10:41. So this gives us extra opportunity to see some part of the disk of the moon cover the sun and witness this incredible event. The last time it happened for here was 1999, so I'm actually been waiting quite a long time. But the build-up has been, we've known about this for a long time. NASA and the astronomers across the world calculated these events for the next 2,000 years. So we have all of these mapped out for future events. Between now and the next best eclipse for the UK will be in 2026. There'll be about 20 solar eclipses worldwide, but most of those will be partial. So having a total solar eclipse in our part of the world, that has been so extra special.
It's been amazing. I was between two minds whether to come here or not today. I'm really pleased I did. This is the place to be, after all, Greenwich.
Indeed. What did you notice?
I did definitely notice it getting a bit chillier and a little bit darker. I thought it would get more dark, but it didn't.
I think we haven't been helped today with the cloud cover, have we? But definitely, even through the cloud now, as the sun is beginning to reveal itself again, it certainly is getting lighter again, isn't it?
Definitely, and noticeably so, and much less chilly as well.
Well, there is still hope that the cloud might break, and we might be able to see a little bit.
Let's hope. We can always hope, can't we?
I can see the Cutty Sark, I can see the old Naval College, I can even see the O2. The one thing I can't see is last contact. Brendan.
Unfortunately not. It's sort of a bittersweet time because we're coming to the end of this partial eclipse for us here in London and for the total eclipse up in further north. And at this point in time, if the clouds were clear, we'd be seeing a bite of the sun still remaining as the moon leaves the disk of the sun and this spectacular event comes to a close.
But it definitely is much brighter now, and the eeriness that I felt at maximum obscurity has definitely gone. Life has returned to normal.
I think so. I even now find myself squinting a little bit on the sky. There's a bit more of that sunlight coming through.
He's so optimistic.
I honestly, if at the last moment there's just one gap, I would go for it. But it looks unlikely at this time. But I know there's fantastic images from all over the country. I'm definitely going to have a look at some of those.
Well, it is definitely a bittersweet pill, and nature is definitely having the last laugh today because this layer of cloud is so thin, and probably it will go by midday. And
Yes,
that's the really sad thing.
Yeah, but one thing I suppose we would take away is that with this sort of event, it's drawn attention perhaps to the sun itself. And the sun is something spectacular that can be seen at any time, safely using solar eclipse viewing glasses, but also using solar telescopes as well. We study sunspots in the sun and the activity on the sun, and it is our living star. We're living in the wake of our star, the sun. So that's something to get involved in as well.
Absolutely. And if the sun wasn't there, we would not be alive on Earth, would we?
Exactly.
The planet would be 60 degrees colder, I think.
Absolutely. It would not be a habitable place. We're just at the right distance from our star, not too hot, not too cold, in the Goldilocks zone.
And I think that's one of the amazing things today. It's made us think about how crazy and how amazing astronomy really is, and how everything is aligned just so. If the moon wasn't 400 times smaller than the sun, and if the moon wasn't 400 times nearer to us than the sun, we wouldn't get this alignment in the first place.
No, we get something that we call a transit, which we see with the planets Mercury and Venus, where you just get a circle across the sun, but not covering the entirety of the sun. So this is one of those real cosmic coincidences, and I feel very lucky to be on this planet in our part of the neighbourhood in our galaxy, the Milky Way.
The 2015 a partial eclipse is over, and there was anticipation. There was the hope that the cloud would break. Unfortunately, it didn't here in Greenwich. But we got to speak to experts, to astronomers that were really passionate about this eclipse and were delighted nonetheless. It did get eerie. It did get darker. And that's the last time there's going to be one here for another 11 years. And even then, that'll only be a very partial eclipse. 2090 is the next total eclipse in the UK.